Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Legend of Korra video. This is going to be my video as part of the Avatar YouTuber project to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of Legend of Korra, and that project is called One Legendary Scene. So thanks to Antoine Bandelay for contacting me, organizing this whole thing, and asking me to be a part of it. So what this is like the title suggests, one legendary scene. The idea is that each of these Avatar YouTubers, including myself, is going to choose a scene from Legend of Korra to talk about in depth to celebrate Korra on its 10-year anniversary and use it as a way to start the anniversary conversation about Korra, celebrate the strength of Korra as a series. Obviously, the intent is to, this is what the scene I'm going to pick, but in the comments, or if you guys want to make your own videos, definitely do so and let me know what your scene is. What scene would you choose to be your one legendary scene that to you sort of defines Korra, stands out the most from Korra to you, or just is the one you like to talk about the most? So yeah, this is a conversation opener, but let's start the video here with what scene I chose. So my one legendary scene is from K214 Light in the Dark, the Book 2 Spirits finale. It is Korra decides to keep the spirit portals open. So let's jump into the in-depth analysis on this scene. Okay, so why did I choose this scene in particular? Well, if you guys have followed my channel for any length of time, you'll probably have known that I was very, very likely to have chosen a Book 2 scene, just because it's a book I love to talk about so much. You guys know it's my favorite book of Korra, and I kind of felt, and then it was also confirmed when I saw a lot of the list of what scenes other people were doing, that not a lot of other people are doing Book 2 scenes. So I think it needed a little bit of representation in there, and so I decided to go for a Book 2 scene. Interestingly, my two other potential picks were also Book 2 scenes, but I went with this one because it very much emphasizes Korra's character arc. And to me, when Korra is at its best, it is Korra herself undergoing a really strong character arc. And for me, Book 2 Spirits does that the best. I do think Book 2 is Korra's strongest character development arc. And the scene I'm highlighting here, her decision to keep the spirit portals open, I think is the end point of her journey in Book 2. So before we get straight into just the exact details of the scene where she keeps the spirit portals open, I think we need to address just how well done her arc is across the entirety of Book 2. That this is the end point of her journey, but how does she get there? The fandom tends to view a lot of early Book 2 as not being great, and that Korra, the word, there's a lot of bad words I think aimed at Korra when it comes to how she is in these early episodes, in terms of you often see the word brat leveled at her and stuff like that. But I'm much more understanding of Korra's early arc than I think a lot of the fandom is, and I think a lot of it works because at its core, Korra's arc this book is about she wants to be the Avatar, and a lot of people around her are sort of putting obstacles in her way that don't allow her to be the Avatar. We're in Book 2 now. We've had a book where she did accomplish something. She's proven herself to a certain degree as the Avatar, and I think is deserving of some respect. But she's not really given that by a lot of the people around her. Tenzin is criticizing her for how she uses her own Avatar powers. Tenzin and her father Tonraq both are basically making all the decisions for her. And this obviously comes to a head in the early episodes when Unalaq reveals the truth to Korra, which is that the whole reason Korra's whole Avatar journey is different than, a typical Avatar, why it was all in the compound, was not because Aang said it was, something she could, I suppose, respect to a certain degree. No, it was a decision made by, effectively Tonraq and Tenzin. And they kept that from her this whole time, and continue to try and sort of control where exactly she should go. In that you have that moment in like episode 2 where Tonraq, her own father, is kind of saying, stay out of spiritual matters. You shouldn't get involved in spiritual stuff, when she's the Avatar. And because of a lot of that stuff, the lies that they told her, and like not really respecting her opinions in when it comes to things, I'm a lot more understanding of Korra's her position and why she makes the decision to actually go and train with Unalaq and separate from Tenzin. And I think this is proven to be, I think, the right take, because the arc that both Tonraq and Tenzin go on is that they also have growth to do. Tenzin acknowledges as much in 214 that he couldn't be the mentor that she needed before he developed himself. And that's why he's able to give Korra such amazing advice in 214, is because he had all this time himself where, with his own family, himself, the kind of meeting with Aang, I suppose, in the previous episode, he learned what lessons he needed to do to be a better mentor to Korra, to help her achieve her, ultimate goal, and, fully, properly take on that mantle of the Avatar in this episode. And again, I'm not over exaggerating this point. Like, Korra literally has a scene with her mother Senna in, I think it's episode 3 of book 2, where they have this conversation. Her mother says to her that, like, we only ever wanted to try and give you like a normal childhood, but Korra responds and says, but I didn't want that. I wanted to be the Avatar. That's all I've ever wanted, and effectively you're holding me back. That is key. And you see so many characters not really, allow her. And that's where the appeal of Unalaq is that Unalaq, even though he is manipulating her, gives her that respect and does honestly train her, because he needs her to be more spiritual to accomplish what he needs to. And this is where I think the whole other angle on the scene I'm about to talk about comes in, which is that the influence of Unalaq on Korra is, I think, more impactful and kind of profound in a way than a lot of the other villains in Korra, in that he teaches her to be more spiritual. She learns the spirit bending technique from him. The name of the final episode, Light in the Dark, is actually a line of dialogue that Unalaq says in episode 2, find the light in the dark. They echo it in the Tree of Time in 214 as well. So that's a nice kind of callback to have there. And it really highlights that, in a way, the Unalaq that is feigning being like this is sort of the Unalaq who maybe in the past had these more reasonable ideals. And so it's this idea that just because he's then outed sort of as the villain, it doesn't mean Korra has not been listening to what he says. It doesn't mean that everything that he talks about is just pointless because he's the villain. And that's where we properly get into the scene that I'm talking about here. In the immediate kind of what happens just directly before this scene, Korra's at a very low point. The past lives are gone. Korra's not the Avatar anymore. 213 has one of the more devastating moments in the entire show. And she has to try and come back from that and fight fight for the fate of the world. And how does she do that? Tenzin has to big her up. And this scene with Korra and Tenzin is probably my second pick for the big scene that I want to talk about in this video. I'm not going to go too in depth on it now, because I'm talking about the portal decision a little later on. But, like I was mentioning, Tenzin's arc allows him to properly at this point realize the mentor that he needs to be to Korra. And that is to help her personally. He's already taught her airbending. He isn't her spiritual mentor, but he can be more of just a personal mentor, someone who just cares about her, which is the opposite of Unalaq, who does only care about her because she's the Avatar. So that's a nice dynamic to have in this as well. And what he says to her is key, in that he highlights that effectively Korra is too much focusing on her identity as the Avatar. She defines herself purely by her powers as the Avatar, and doesn't put a lot of, being the Avatar on herself, her own personality, her own approach. And he points out, using the Wan example, that Wan effectively was the Avatar before he ever got the powers of the Avatar. And he earned that title before he got the powers. And he's pointing out the the situation is that he believes that Korra is the same. You may not now have the powers of the Avatar, but you're absolutely worthy of that title, and you can do it on your own. Your own spirit is powerful too. And so we get her big Tree of Time moment. The fight happens with the help of Jinora. She wins, spirit bends Unalaq, and this creates the dynamic leading into the scene here we're talking about. So we're basically doing a wrap up here at this point as we approach this scene. And again, so much big stuff has happened, you'll think that, okay, we'll just reset things back to normal and go on with things. This was still a great arc for Korra, even if nothing else significant happens. But, and it's really cool the dialogue that we get here, because it seems like things are almost going back to the way they were before. Tenzin just kind of says, okay, Korra, just close the portals and we'll head off and get things back to normal. And she's about to do just that. Not really think about it, just do the obvious thing. Do the thing that Wan did in the past and, address that kind of point of she's kind of respects Wan. She thinks that she's not as good as Wan. So she'll just make the same decision he did. But then she reaches out her hand and pulls back and goes into her explanation that I think shows her character growth completely over the course of the season. And just kind of points out, like, what if I don't do this? What if we keep the portals open? What if now is the time to allow humans and spirits to try again? In that, in my opinion, Wan was correct to do what he did in his era, but Korra is also correct here to consider reversing this for her era. That humans and spirits have been separated for long enough, and now is time to try again. And what I love that they do during this scene is that there's one slight cutaway in the middle of the Korra Tenzin dialogue, and that is to Bumi and Boomju, highlighting a human and a spirit having a good relationship together. And not just that, but Bumi, who only recently has discovered that he's like a little bit spiritual, and very quickly forms a relationship with Boomju. So it kind of highlights that these sort of spontaneous dynamics between humans and spirits are actually possible. And it's so clear that they do that cutaway for that reason, to show you that it's not just a theoretical thing, that this could be good to keep the portals open, but that it's you're already seeing it. Jinora and her relationship with the spirits, Boomju now, and this could be so many more people. Peace between humans and spirits would be very, very meaningful for the world. And so she just considers it. She considers, what if Unalaq was right to a certain degree? Which, after everything that's happened, like, Unalaq was the one who took the past lives away, ultimately. He betrayed her. He revealed that he didn't care about himself. He didn't care about Korra. He didn't care about his own children, and was about to plunge the world into darkness. He went full villain. But she doesn't ignore the kind of more reasonable points in his argument. And Korra itself as a series makes this point later on in book 4. Toph brings up the idea of, like, what have you learned from your villains? And she runs down the first 3 villains effectively. And I think it's most fitting for Unalaq, because this scene directly shows, right at the end of the book where Unalaq was the villain, her learning from the villain and making a massive change in the world because of what she, has taken on from, obviously part of it is she saw the Wan backstory. She sees the way the world is now. She sees that the way the world is now sort of created Unalaq when it comes to humanity's, like, spirituality. I think now is time for a change. And so this all comes together to create this kind of, I think, just very strong moment where you'd be completely fine of Korra after everything that's happened. She's got the Avatar back as best as she can. She's refused with Rava at this point. She should just, cool things down, close the portals, go back to normal. But she still wants to be the Avatar again. That's the core plot with Korra. She wants to be the Avatar. She wants to make big decisions. And the fact that she actually reverses a Wan decision here is great. But it's not just that. It's that she's considering this, like, this is, I think, what I want to do. But then she asks Tenzin, and this is a show of growth for Korra that I've been sort of defending her in the earlier episodes. But it is fair to say she was a bit brash in some of those early episodes. She maybe didn't approach the way she wanted to be the Avatar perfectly. But it's only a subtle shift that was needed. And so something like this, that she doesn't take the approach of, oh, I'll now make all the decisions on my own. She asks Tenzin here, like, what do you think? And if this was an underdeveloped Tenzin from earlier on in the season, he probably would say close them because it's too risky to do anything else. But because he has grown and he now realizes what position he should take as Korra's mentor, he actually decides that, no, now's not the time for me to present my opinion on it. It's now time for me to trust you because I helped you kind of get back in the fight, but look at what you just accomplished in finding some way to win the day here. You deserve the respect to be able to make this decision on your own, and I trust that you will make the right decision. And interestingly, we don't see her do it here. We cut away. There's a scene in between this and then her speech at the end. And it's only in the speech that she reveals that she did, in fact, keep the portals open. And the speech that she gives here as sort of the explanation for her actions here is absolutely fantastic. There's so much going on in this speech. For one, just a little moment of that she is the one who gets to announce, like, the Southern Water Tribe's independence, and she gets to announce her father as the new official, chief of the South. That's great because it comes back to, these two were at conflict with each other in the earlier episodes, but they come back to it now and can acknowledge that he is the leader the South actually needs. But then what she says next is really, really important. I've realized that even though we should learn from those who came before us, we must also forge our own path. That is why I've decided to keep the portals open. And she explains that this is what this means for the world. Humans can go into the spirit world, the spirits can come into the physical world. Things are going to be different. My role as the Avatar is not to be the only person who deals with spirits on behalf of humanity. We have to learn to live together. And the setup for Book 3 then, harmonic convergence has changed things. This is going to be a new age going forward. And you cut to the sky, the lights are there, southern, northern, but spirits are in the sky now. So this is a change that Korra has made happen. So not only the impressive victory against all the odds in the final fight, but she makes a massive decision for the world that, it's going to be tough to get there, but if it works out, if she can be the one to create some level of peace and understanding between humans and spirits, will put her as one of the legendary avatars. We're still sort of waiting to see where that happens in terms of like future comics addressing it a little bit more. But it's a great plot point to have for Korra to deal with, this bigger challenge that other avatars have tried, created different solutions like Yang Chen, but maybe Korra might be the one to maybe make this properly happen. Either way, she will always be notable for being the character who made this decision to, try to reverse, she reversed Wan's decision. Now it's time to try and fix things. So amazing scene here. I just absolutely adore it, in that a lot of people really love Book 3 because, they find Korra very likable in it, but that Korra only exists because of the development that she undergoes in Book 2. That we had to go through those maybe tougher times at the start with Korra in Book 2, in those early episodes. But to get this incredible development, the scenes with Tenzin's growth, her father coming to believe in her properly, the sort of, in a way, tragic tale of Unalaq as like the character who deep down wanted the world to just be more spiritual, wanted to bring the spirits back in, but felt that the way to make that happen was he took it too far. And Korra has actually managed to take the core ideals that deep down Unalaq probably would want and actually make them happen. So much of book 2 I think really does come together with the writing at the end, and it absolutely works fantastic for me. And just that moment of Korra reaching her hand out, pulling it back, and considering it. That is something like book 1 Korra wouldn't have done. Early book 2 Korra wouldn't have done. But end of book 2 Korra onwards does do. So this is why I choose this scene. This is why it's my one legendary scene from Legend of Korra. But once again, in the comments, let me know what your one legendary scene is. Whether you want to just post a comment or make a video yourself, go ahead. And yeah, happy Korra 10-year anniversary, everyone.